How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
Welcome back to Fine Tooning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and Mr. Taylor, whose writings on the industry you can regularly read over on The Wrap, and whose musings on the Mission Impossible movies you can listen to on Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast. He and I are recording this week's show on Monday, July 14th, which means we're now just, 10 days out from the start of San Diego Comic-Con, and we teased on last week's show that you were moderating a panel at this year's event, but we couldn't reveal what it was about. But now that the programming schedule has finally been shared with the world at large, we can do this. We can reveal you've traded Tom Cruise for an even bigger star.
That's right. I think we can. Are we talking about it now, or do you want to tease it for later in the show?
No. Now.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, you can come see me on Friday, July 25th. I will be hosting a panel dedicated to the king of all monsters, Mr. Godzilla. And also, the panel is all about the kind of licensing partners that have worked with Godzilla. So there might be some news. We'll see, Jim. But yeah, it should be super fun. Of course, we are going up against the Tron Ares / Predator Badlands presentation in Hall H. But you know what? Listen, if you can't get in, come spend some time with me, and we'll have some fun.
Now, speaking of Godzilla, who, by the way, is celebrating his 70th anniversary, I'm hoping that while you're in town, you can make your way over to 701 8th Avenue, which is where Super 7...
Oh, yeah. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. Do you want to...
Godzilla Station, I think they're calling it. Yeah.
That's it exactly. And the notion that if you go to this pop-up store that Super 7 is set up, there's going to be a full-size destroyed train, the exterior, the interior, actual props from Godzilla Minus One, and Godzilla cosplayers, a kaiju response team, and important to stress here, folks, this is as part of the San Diego Comic-Con campus. You do not need credentials to get in on the fun here. You can go to the shop, and on Friday they have the director of Shin Godzilla.
Yeah, one of the directors of Shin Godzilla will be doing a signing there on Friday. Not Hideaki Anno, but the other guy. And yeah, I'm really excited. Super 7 is definitely going to be a big part of the panel on Friday. So yeah, if you want to know the next goings-on of Godzilla on the merchandise front, definitely come stop by.
Okay, well, now forgive me for getting into grumpy old man mode here, but again, it just kind of frustrates me that, and don't get me wrong, I love Comic-Con. I've had some amazing experiences there. I got to meet Hayao Miyazaki. It was where I first got to know Tom Kenny as a guy. It's a once in a lifetime kind of event. But that said, this whole thing of buy your tickets in October, November, and then you don't find out what's coming to the event till 2 weeks ahead.
Yeah, it's weird. Did you see the George Lucas thing, though? That should be pretty fun.
And that's still in Chicago, right?
No, it's in L.A. The Museum of Narrative Fiction is in L.A.
No!
Yeah.
Oh my God! All right, I saw that he's doing that panel with Guillermo, but
yep.
But again, see, this is the thing: you only get those sorts of things there. And in fact, Nancy is sort of grinding her teeth here at the house because for the first time ever, they're doing the Hallmark Channel is going to San Diego Comic-Con. They're bringing a bunch of their hunks, and they're also there. But it just, again, you don't find out about this stuff till 2 weeks out. Whereas, I mean, and don't get me wrong, you, of all the people I know who does Comic-Con, does it smart. You take the train down for the day.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff on Saturday, but I'm just there on Friday. So I'll take the train at like 9 o'clock from Burbank and then get home at about 10 o'clock that night. So it works for me. I don't need to go to the parties anymore or anything. I'll have a few hours to walk the floor. I'll do my panel. I'll come back. It'll be great. I'm really excited.
See, that sounds ideal to me, that you get a taste of Comic-Con and then you move on. And more to the point, you're actually moderating. I was lucky enough to do in the early 2000s or thereabouts. They haven't asked me back since, but anyway, okay, moving on now. Because, of course, this isn't a Godzilla podcast. This is an animation news podcast. But before we get to the news, we have to acknowledge our sponsors, which is UnlockMagic.com, which is where you get real discounts on Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando tickets, sometimes upwards of 12% off. And just so you know, Unlock Magic is the exact same team behind the DVC rental store and the DVC resale market. So just pick your dates, grab your tickets, and then you're on your way with more cash to spend on, well, all right, Godzilla toys. If there are any Godzilla toys for sale at the Disney parks and Universal. Though speaking of which, Drew, did you see, now this was, mind you, Universal Studios Japan back summer of 2019. Do you see they actually had a Shin Godzilla 4D movie in the park for a couple of months?
No, I didn't. I mean, I know that there is a Godzilla Minus One attraction coming soon, right? But I don't know if it's in Universal or where it is, but yeah.
Okay. Well, this was done as part of the Universal Cool Japan events. In fact, these are the things that the Fan Fest, the one that was just held at Hollywood, they sort of provided the template for that. And if what we're hearing is true, the Fan Fest is headed to Orlando. Anyway, what was cool about this Shin Godzilla 4D movie is that at one point in the film, Godzilla actually bends over, and you know the icon for the park, the big spinning globe? Godzilla bends down, grabs it in his mouth, and bites it. And what was cool is that as you exited the film, there in the gift shop, they would sell you Godzilla with the Universal globe in his mouth.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So, in fact, if you go over to eBay now, those periodically pop up. But speaking of pop culture stuff coming out of Japan, we have to start this week's show with a sad bit of news. This past week, we lost voice actor James Carter Cathcart. And if you're a Pokemon fan, you know James's work. He was the voice of James from Team Rocket. Not only that, but the voice of Meowth for 700 episodes of the Pokemon TV show. 15 Pokemon movies and way too many games to count. And Drew, you'll love this. James Carter Cathcart came into voice acting in kind of a roundabout way. He actually started his show business career as a guitarist in a New York City punk band. You ever hear of these? The Laughing Dogs?
No, I never have.
Okay, well, they were regulars at CBGB's and were often the opening act for big bands like Cheap Trick and Blondie when they toured in the 70s. But when James became a dad, well, he wanted a show business career that kept him closer to home, so he takes up voice acting. And his association with Pokemon stretches all the way back to 1998 and the release of the first Pokemon, the first movie. And Cathcart kept that gig through 2023, stepped away after a diagnosis of throat cancer, and that's what we lost James to back on July 8th, throat cancer at the age of 71. And Cathcart's longtime co-worker, Erica Schroeder, she voiced Nurse Joy and Eevee on the Pokemon series. She took the social media to pay tribute to her friend and said, "One of the most joyful, exuberant, kind-hearted, and talented souls no longer walks with us. James Carter Cathcart, you were one of a kind, a gentle, beautiful, playful genius, and I was lucky enough to call you my friend. Master of the pen, piano, and the microphone, friend to many, loving father and husband, thank you for your gifts." And Drew and I want to offer up our sincerest condolences to James' friends and family at their time of sadness, and we're so sorry to hear about your loss. And before we plunge into talking about the box office news for this past weekend, why don't we take a break here?
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 50% off with minimum purchase plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
Hey, I'm Mark Ronson.
And I'm Ray.
To celebrate 150 years of Audemars Piguet, we've teamed up to create something timeless.
A tribute to legacy, rhythm, and craft, with a very special connection at its heart.
A soundscape from two cities, two perspectives, and one shared vision.
Introducing our brand new song, Suzanne.
Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
And we're back. All right, so James Gunn's Superman finally arrived in theaters this past weekend, and with 123 million in ticket sales in North America, 217 million globally. Am I hearing right? This is the best opening weekend for this particular Warner Brothers franchise ever. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, unadjusted for inflation. Yeah. I mean, still not the best DC opening. Mm-hmm. Not the best. Yeah. I mean, even the Batman, the Matt Reeves version, made I think 135 opening weekend. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, they're spinning it as a win. We'll see how it plays out long term.
Okay. I mean, let's be honest. Jurassic Park Rebirth still going strong, so that had to create some headwinds. And then I think that's already over $500 million at the worldwide box office. And lots of other stuff still going strong as well. In fact, worth noting that Disney's Lilo and Stitch, the live-action redo, now sits at 994 million worldwide, which means it'll join the billion-dollar earner club sometime later this week, which is kind of a surprise. And getting back to Superman, the James Gunn film right now, very crypto-heavy film, which... have you seen this yet, Drew? Or?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was really, really great. But yeah, very crypto heavy, beautiful work by Framestore on crypto. Yeah, reminded me of my little white dog at home for sure.
That's so cool. Which again, given that that's an entirely CG creation, is kind of impressive. But the other thing that's worth noting is just 3 years ago, this month, July 2022, that's when we got the DC League of Super Pets from the Warner Brothers Animation Group, DC Entertainment, and Seven Bucks Productions. And that, directed by Jared Stern film, didn't do all that well at the box office. It cost studio $90 million to make and only sold $207 million worth of tickets worldwide. And here's the thing. It had Dwayne Johnson providing the voice of Superman's dog and Kevin Hart doing the voice of Batman's dog. And Warner Brothers genuinely hoped that this animated feature would do a lot better at the box office. And by the way, it is also worth noting that just 3 months after DC League of Super Pets opened in the theaters, that's when James Gunn and Pete Safran were brought in to become the new heads of DC Studios at Warner's. Just to be clear, October 2022. And pointedly, James and Peter were then put in charge of, and I'm reading directly from the press release that was issued at that time now, overseeing the creative direction of the DC Universe across film, television, and animation. which is a polite way of saying the people at Warner's actually noticed what happened with DC League of Super Pets, that hiring A-listers to voice Superman's dog or Batman's dog didn't automatically translate into huge ticket sales of an animated feature, putting asses in seats. And I bring this up because just this past week we learned that Alcon Entertainment is readying a sequel to the Garfield movie, which was released to theaters back in May of 2024 with Chris Pratt voicing that animated feature's title character. And I'm not going to lie, Drew. While I never watched Park and Recreation, I did enjoy Pratt's work as Peter Quill, Star-Lord, in the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, which, of course, were written and directed by James Gunn, new head of DC Studios. And I also thought that Pratt did a decent job in the first 3 Jurassic World movies. But that said, Chris Pratt is not a voice actor. Well, okay. It's important to point out here that that's not entirely true. He did great work as Emmett in the Lego Movie, and he also did wonderful work as Barley in Pixar's Onward, which, by the way, my co-host, Drew Taylor, wrote the making of book, The Art of Pixar's Onward, still available on Amazon. Go buy one. But I'm talking specifically about Chris Pratt's performance in playing the title character in the Garfield movie, which I'm going to argue is the weakest part of that movie. And I bring this up because, again, we were just talking about San Diego Comic-Con. And when Nancy and I attended this event back in July of 2003, we got to meet Billy West, the voice of Stimpy from Ren and Stimpy, more recently the voice of Fry, Dr. Farnsworth, and Zoidberg on Futurama. And as we were chatting with Billy, and I knew him from his days in radio back in Boston when he used to be a regular guest on WBCN's The Big Mattress with Charles Laquadera. That, by the way, Drew, is the very first place he trotted out his killer impression of Larry Fine from the Three Stooges and effectively built a career on it. But anyway, Billy and I are talking about his days back in New England. And the topic of Sinbad, the Legend of the Seven Seas, it had just been released to theaters. And West just exploded in regard to this DreamWorks animation film. And Nancy will back me up on this. He said something to the effect of, that son of a bitch, Brad Pitt, who's not a voice actor, he's taken jobs away from people like me. I know how to do that job. I'd like to saw Brad's left foot off and shove it down his throat. And it's like, how'd you like that, Brad? And by the way, Billy's a little less intense these days, a little. That said, Billy did and still does have a point that A-listers may look great up on the big screen, and they often do compel people to go buy tickets to the movies that they're appearing in. But they're sometimes not the right choice behind the mic. And let me go a little further with that thought. I'd argue that the real reason that 2024's version of the Garfield movie actually worked as a film was because of Mark Dindale's direction of that feature-length cartoon. After all, Mark's the guy who helmed Cats Don't Dance, The Emperor's New Groove, and Chicken Little, which were all expertly staged, really funny animated films with heart, which is something that Dindale is really good at delivering, which is why it's a crime that this guy doesn't work more often than he does out in Hollywood. And which brings us to the news you have, Drew.
Yeah, Mark is not coming back for Garfield 2. I talked to him last week, and I was like, oh, are you coming back? And he said, no, I'm not coming back, but I had a great time on the first movie. I wish everybody the best. So hopefully there's some brand new Mark Dindal magic coming very soon, but he will not be back for Garfield 2, which is sad, but you know.
Yeah, but what makes it crazy is that Alcon, that has already signed Chris Pratt to voice, that fat cat for a second film, and not only that, they made him a producer on the project. And let's be honest here, Drew, that really has more to do with the promotion end of this movie, when it finally shows up at your local multiplex a few years down the line, it has a lot more to do with that than Chris Pratt being, say, the perfect voice for this lasagna-loving feline.
Yeah, did you see the video of him on social media getting the pizza that said Garfield 2?
No.
Well,
Okay.
it was very funny because it was it was like somebody wrote Garfield 2 in like sauce on top of the pizza. It was not even like pepperonis being placed, or anything. And then somebody wrote, yes, pizza, the food Garfield is so famously connected with. It's like, yeah, you couldn't have done a lasagna or no.
All right. But, well, look, all right. From a business end, you get it. I mean, Chris Pratt is a guy who's been in, the films that have made $14.1 billion worldwide to date. So we want the morning talk shows, we want the late night talk shows, Fallon, that sort of thing. When it's time to promote Garfield 2, effectively, when you say to the bookers on those shows, we got Chris Pratt, it's an automatic yes. It's like not only an automatic yes, but he's the first guest of the evening. It just... I bring this up because I don't know if you saw the info about Ne Zha 2 that also broke this past week.
Of course, I wrote it up. It's coming to theaters with a new English dub in August.
There we go.
But what's interesting is that A24 is putting it out. Very interesting partner. This is, of course, the indie studio behind The Brutalist and Midsommar and countless others. So I thought that was very interesting that they were the ones behind this new theatrical release.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. A24, did they also do Everything Everywhere All at Once? Because
yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So they had obviously a working relationship with Michelle Yeoh, and she's the one that was the big reveal that she's going to be voicing a character for this new English dub version of Ne Zha 2, which, by the way, I want to remind folks, this is now. I mean, this is the film that came out in January, and all anyone could talk about is how quickly it what, $2 billion worldwide. The highest grossing animated film of all time, fifth highest grossing film in Hollywood history. But the interesting thing is only 20 million of that was from ticket sales stateside. Again, that was because it was in an English subtitle and a Mandarin version when it ran stateside, right? So,
yep.
Okay, so that's the hope this time around. And in fact, that comes out in August, I want to say. Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, late August. But it's a full-on release. It's not like a Fathom events or anything. It's going to be a full theatrical event.
And more to the point, Michelle Yeoh, who, remember, won an Academy Award as Best Actress for her work in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and more to the point, just last year was Madame Morrible in Part 1 of Wicked, and she'll be back again this December. So that's a really smart get on their part, because again, like Chris, when you go to do the necessary advertising for Ne Zha 2, when you say we have Michelle, the bookers on those morning talk shows or morning news shows and late night talk shows, or yes, of course, absolutely. And also important to stress here that Michelle has done animation work previously. She was did voices for Kung Fu Panda 2 and Minions Rise of Gru. But again, if we're being honest here, I don't think it's those credits that compelled A24 or the folks at CMC Pictures. They're A24's partners on this new re-release of Ne Zha. But yeah, it was more about, this is a name we have some history with, but it's still a name. And what's your take on this, Drew? I mean,
well, I'm very curious because she was the only one announced as a new voice actor on this project. So I'm very curious how much more starry this production is going to be, or if she's kind of the headliner. Yeah, it's much like Chris Pratt was the only person they announced coming back for Garfield 2. They said, we don't have writers, we don't have directors, we don't have the rest of the cast, we just have Chris Pratt. Like, you know, it's really interesting, but I would love to know who else is involved in these projects because they're big, you know, these are big deals. So, yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, I have to admit that, you know, even on things that I have thought Chris Pratt is the wrong voice for that. I mean, for example, the Super Mario Brothers movie, the you know, just last year from Illumination. Fans of the game were like, that's not how Mario sounds. But it's like, look, this thing made $1.3 billion worldwide. So, it, you know, you have to acknowledge that people did turn out. They did come out for that film.
Did you see that, speaking of Mario, that Universal registered a Donkey Kong movie license?
Alice pointed that out to me. It's nice to have a daughter who pays attention to that realm. But yeah, that's interesting that's coming.
Yeah.
Back to Chris Pratt as Garfield. Look, I'm an old fart. All right, when I think Garfield, I think Lorenzo Music, you know, the guy who originated the voice, and to a lesser extent Bill Murray, and these days I think Frank Welker, who, to be honest, is basically doing a Lorenzo Music impression. So tell me, Drew, are Billy West and I wrong? Should A-listers stay away from doing it?
Listen, you pointed out, Jim, this is all for marketing, for publicity. They need whatever they can to cut through the noise of other movies. And you know what? Like, they aren't competing against other animated movies like they were when Sinbad came out. They're competing against TikTok and YouTube and the Nintendo Switch and all of this stuff. So anything that can get to people through all of that is a net win. So if Chris Pratt, with his millions of social media followers and his continued exposure in live action films, can get them more heat on Garfield 2, they're going to do it. So, I mean, it seems like the Sinbad sort of like inflection point has died down a little bit. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, George Clooney only did an animated movie for Wes Anderson, so we gotta.
Well, there we go. The Fabulous Mr. Fox, is that right? Or
Fantastic Mr. Fox? Yeah,
fantastic.
Did I tell you that I went to the Wes Anderson exhibit at the French Cinematheque in Paris, and they had all the models of all of the sets and everything, but they had a lot of figures from both Fantastic Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs, and some of the animated characters from other movies like the alien from Asteroid City and the fish from The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, which, as you'll recall, was animated by Henry Selick. So it was a really great exhibit. Yeah.
Holy cow, that's killer. Okay, all right. Well, I'm suddenly a less grumpy old man. So, all right. Tell you what, let's go. Let's cut to a quick break, and then we'll come back.
So good, so good, so good.
Great brands, great prices. Everyone's got a reason to rack.
You know they have Marc Jacobs?
Nike? Yes. Just so many good brands.
Vince, Birkenstock, and more brands you love are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Plus, buy it online and pick it up in-store the same day for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
All right. Okay. I'll admit it. Last part of this podcast, a little too negative. So let's talk about something animation related from the past week that really made me smile. And did you see the teaser trailer for the SpongeBob movie Search for SquarePants that Paramount put out last week?
Yeah, I'm very high on this movie. I saw the teaser at CinemaCon, and then I saw a bunch of footage at Annecy during the Paramount presentation. It was basically, because I had to leave early and I didn't get to see the Ninja Turtles short, it was basically like half SpongeBob and then half Smurfs. So I got a good look at the SpongeBob movie, and I'm very excited about it, Jim. I gotta tell you.
Same thing here. And by the way, I've been a fan of this character since SpongeBob first came on the scene in May of '99. And there's a part of me that's just kind of startled, like, this is the 6th film in the series? But I'm not proud to admit this, but I laughed at the catchphrase for Search SquarePants on the film's poster. Did you see this? Shipped, about to go down. And I also I roared at that moment in the teaser trailer when SpongeBob noticed his lucky brick. But so it's clear my inner 5-year-old is alive and well. But the SpongeBob movie, Search for SquarePants, which is where SpongeBob and Patrick join the ghostly pirate, the Flying Dutchman, for a journey to the deepest part of the ocean, the underworld. This Derek Drymon movie opens in theaters on December 19th. By the way, Mark Hamill will be voicing the Flying Dutchman this time around. Previously, on the 321 episodes of the SpongeBob TV series that have been produced to date, that character was voiced by Brian Doyle Murray, who did a great job with the Dutchman. Though these days, circling back to Nancy and her Hallmark movies, he seems to be far more busy playing Santa Claus. And he's a great Santa Claus, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that. I love him.
Oh, no,
so I'm glad that he's still getting work.
Oh, yeah, but he does a particularly cranky Santa Claus. That's a great, especially with the Hallmark movies, a great joy to watch. Now, back to Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill, of course, is best known for his work on screen as Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars films, but behind the mic, Hamill is the man when it comes to voicing the Joker. And I bring the Joker up today because, Drew, have you seen any of the stuff for Aztec Batman Clash of Empires?
Aztec Batman is really interesting because it screened at Annecy last year. And then it was like, where is it?
I did not know that.
Yeah, is it coming? Where is it? Do we know?
Well, this is what's interesting. Okay, this is a collaboration between Warner Brothers and Anima, which is this animated studio in Mexico, and Aztec Batman is a reimagining of the Batman origin story. It has a Bruce Wayne-like character. In this case, it's a young Aztec boy who's training for the priesthood, who's driven into hiding when, the Spanish conquistadors arrive, and Cortez himself kills this boy's father. So where does this Bruce Wayne character go to hide from the conquistadors? The Temple of the Bat. Which is where he then develops all of this state-of-the-art gear, well, state-of-the-art for 1519, to then go back do battle with the conquistadors. And I don't know how much you know about this movie, Drew, but the Joker, in Aztec Batman Clash of Empires, he's Yoga. He's this stern, strict priest who's gradually driven mad by voices in his head who he thinks are the gods who are telling him that the way to drive out Cortez and the conquistador is to engage in even more brutal human sacrifice. So to bring us back to what you mentioned, so it ran at Annecy last year.
Yeah, I mean, it was a screening of the full movie. It was not like a footage type thing.
And well, what's interesting is that it's paneling at San Diego Comic-Con. In fact, first official day of the event, July 24th. It's going to be in room 6BCF from 3:30 to 4:30, and members of the creative team are there, so maybe they could let us know when it's going to show up, because wasn't this produced to be a DC home premiere, right?
Yeah, I had heard that it looks like it'll be on HBO Max the Latin versions sometime this year, but hopefully we'll get some details out of San Diego Comic-Con, because everybody who saw it said it was absolutely wonderful. And I love the, Batman Ninja stuff that has come out. So, yeah, I'm excited.
No, same thing here. It looks absolutely amazing. And by the way, if after your Godzilla merch panel, if you want to get on the floor and go over to the DC Studios booth, see if somebody there can share some info with you. I bring this up because, of course, you have the lovely Nova. And again, we were just talking about Crypto being a big part of the Superman movie and the DC League of Super Pets animated film. But did you see that this year's DC booth is actually really leaning into the whole dog thing, that they're partnering with the Guide Dogs of America, their tender loving canines program, and there's going to be a doggy meet and greet at the booth with with a legion of caped canines.
Oh my God, that is the most exciting news we've had all episode. Jim, well, I gotta say,
that's what I'm saying. So, swing by, see if get some swag for Nova, and again, while you're there, find out what's going on with Aztec Batman. But anyway, speaking of which, folks, there is lots and lots of animated related programming, obviously coming out of San Diego Comic-Con, which Drew and I are going to discuss at length on next week's show. As we sort of run for the curtain here, want to briefly touch base on a topic we previously talked about on Fine Tooning. Another dog, a Bluey, who is supposed to be making their big screen debut in 2027. Well, it turns out, Drew, the folks in Europe can't wait that long, which is why later this month, Bluey at the Cinema, Let's Play Chef, is going to show up at multiplexes across the continent. And what's interesting about this, it's not a movie. It's rather 8 fan favorite episodes of the Bluey TV series that have been stitched together to create this feature-length movie-like experience, which weirdly is what the studios used to do back in the 40s and 50s. They would actually, both Disney and Warner Brothers would do things like just literally create a solid block of programming that was nothing but Donald Duck episodes or nothing but Daffy Duck episodes, and splice them all together and send it out into the world as kiddie matinee programming. These things were typically called cartoon cavalcades. So, as Peter Allen used to say, everything old is new again. So, Bluey at the Cinema, Let's Play Chef, again with these 8 fan favorite episodes from the TV series, debuts next week in Spain, July 23rd to be exact, and then this cartoon compilation rolls out to theaters in France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Poland, because Bluey's loved the world round, and as is Bugs Bunny. And Drew, I'm honestly embarrassed that we're only now mentioning this after the fact. But did you see this past weekend at the Hollywood Bowl for 2 nights, July 11th and the 12th? They had huge crowds turn out for a celebration of Bugs Bunny's 85th birthday.
I saw that. I wish I could have gone. There's also, Jim, a Coyote versus Acme panel at Comic-Con this year. So ooh. I am forbidden to say more, but I would say that it would be a good idea if you stop by. I will sadly not be there, but I will be there in spirit, rooting them on. So yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Now to get back to this thing that was held at the Bowl on Saturday and Sunday, the Bugs Bunny at the Symphony. Have you ever done any of these where it's effectively they show Looney Tunes from the 40s up on the big screen while a live orchestra then performs the score from that short that, Carl Stalling or Milt Franklin wrote back in the day?
I've never done it, but it looks amazing. I mean, I could not believe how many people were there for both of those nights.
Yeah, well, some of it is Six Flags sent over its Looney Tunes walk around. So there was a lot of that showing up on social media. But I'm old. I actually went to the first of these back in the 1990s, and they were so much fun because it gives you such a strong appreciation for how the animation is married to the music, and to see it was just so impressive to have the orchestra delivering the goods live there on stage, as opposed to somebody working in a recording studio and, all right, we need to retake that, let's go back to measure 5, whatever. Anyway, at this event, Drew, Bugs Bunny at the Symphony, a record 17 shorts were shown. And what was especially cool this time around is a number of the shorts were of more recent vintage. They were things like Dynamite Dance and Wet Cement, which were Looney Tunes things that were made for that. Remember that 1,000 minutes of new content thing?
Yep.
Yeah, so a couple of those got culled out of this and shown. And better yet, Eric Baza and Bob Bergen, who are, of course, both renowned for their voice work as Porky Pig, I guess they were on hand as kind of dueling MCs, kind of in the Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Rabbit seasoning kind of way. And I just wish I could have been there in person for that. But by the way, folks, if Bugs Bunny at the Symphony ever shows up in a city near you, and by the way, this live concert effort does tour. It's been doing so for 3 decades now. But do go out of your way to check this out. It's the sort of thing that that every animation fan should have on their bucket list. And speaking of things you should be going out of your way to experience, listen to, if you're not already listening to Drew Taylor's other podcast, Light the Fuse, which is the official Mission Impossible podcast that Drew does with his equally talented co-host, Charles Hood. You're missing out on some truly great behind-the-scenes stories when it comes to modern Hollywood. And last we talked, you guys were getting ready to bring out some additional stuff in regard to Final Reckoning, right?
That's right. I don't know if it's gotten final approval, but there might be an episode this week. Should you so just keep your eyes peeled for that.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. That's great to hear. Oh, speaking of other podcasts, here at Jim Hill Media, we have some shows we'd like you to check out. Of course, Disney Dish with Len Testa, the Epic Universal podcast I do with Eric Kersey, who produces a lot of the shows here at the network. Likewise, I Want That Too. There's the Merch podcast I do with Eric's lovely bride, Lauren. Also, want to remind you of Manufacturing the Magic. That's the themed entertainment history podcast we host here. That's produced by Noah and Shelley Valladolid. Another new episode of that series, this one about Walt's love of trains and how that impacted the design of the original Disneyland. That just went live this past Saturday, July 12th. And later this afternoon, Len Testa and veteran Imagineer Jim Schull and I will be recording a brand new episode of Disney Unpacked. That's our video series for Patreon. And this time around, we're shining a spotlight on the history of Test Track at Epcot. Anyway, as we close up shop here for the week, please do Drew and I a favor. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review. Well, not just the show you're listening to right now, Fine Tooning, but also put in a good word for Light Diffuse. All right. Social media. Where can the nice folks find you, Drew?
Mostly on Instagram and X at Drew Tailored, like a tailored shirt. Where can they find you, Jim Hill?
Let's see. I am on X and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and over on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And that's going to do it for this week, folks. So on behalf of Mr. Taylor, thank you for listening to Fine Tuning, and we will be back soon.